All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the ultimate keystone of the modern AI age. We're talking about ASML and the frankly incredible science behind its absolute global monopoly. We're going to explore how one single company holds the keys to literally everything, from the smartphone in your pocket to the massive data centers powering artificial intelligence.
So let's jump right in with a pretty staggering realization that came out of the company's July 2026 earnings shock. Right around that time, two completely different tech titans reported massive wins within a day of each other. TSMC was breaking records, and memory makers were seeing margin surges of like 86%. But there's a hidden thread tying them all together. Every single 2-nanometer wafer TSMC prints, every high-bandwidth memory stack, every processor in the world's top AI data centers, they all have to pass through a beam of light generated in exactly one place.
And that place is Veldhoven. It's a small Dutch city with a population of just about 46,000. To put that into perspective, that's barely enough people to fill a Major League Baseball stadium. Yet, this tiny town quietly holds the fate of a multi-trillion-dollar tech ecosystem right in the palm of its hands. It's honestly kind of hard to wrap your head around, right? An entire global technological revolution bottlenecks in this one modest European headquarters.
And just to show you the scale of this, ASML hit a staggering market capitalization of roughly $685 billion in July 2026. This wild valuation was driven by a massive, unexpected surge in demand for memory machines that completely caught analysts off guard. We're essentially watching a memory supercycle pull right up to ASML's loading docks, and it is totally transforming the financial landscape of the entire hardware industry.
Now here is what's truly wild. This isn't just a really good market position. ASML owns exactly 100% of the extreme ultraviolet, or EUV, market. 100%. They've effectively built a monopoly that's defined by the laws of physics itself. Giant rivals like Canon and Nikon, they surrendered years ago. When it comes to EUV lithography, there is no plan B. There's no backup supplier. There is only Veldhoven.
And that memory supercycle, it fundamentally accelerated their timelines. ASML just crushed their Q2 expectations with over 9.3 billion euros in sales. The result? They pushed their full-year guidance to between 43 and 45 billion euros, with gross margins hitting an incredible 55 to 57%. They're hitting levels they genuinely didn't expect to see until 2030, and it's largely driven by a massive greater than 75% surge in memory production machine sales. Plus, their order book is absolutely packed solid all the way into 2027 and 2028.
Section 1. The Impossible Machine, Subatomic Physics, and Molten Tin. To really grasp why the entire tech empire bows down to Veldhoven, you have to look at the frantic, totally mind-bending physics going on inside an EUV machine. To print transistors that are literally measured in atoms, ASML uses a 13.5-nanometer light that doesn't even naturally exist on Earth. So how do they make it? Well, they drop these 25-micron-wide spheres of molten tin at 70 kilometers per hour. Then 50,000 times a second, they shoot those tiny droplets with a laser. Actually, scratch that. They shoot each one twice. The first hit flattens it into a little pancake, and the second hit vaporizes it into a plasma that is literally hotter than the surface of the sun. It's an insane scientific wager that cost over 60 billion euros and took over 2 decades of grueling research to finally perfect. And capturing that microscopic flash of 13.5-nanometer light, that requires mirrors made exclusively by Zeiss, polished to an almost unfathomable level of perfection. Because this specific wavelength of light is absorbed by practically everything, including air and glass, these mirrors have to be flawless. Zeiss has this great analogy. If you blew one of these mirrors up to the size of Germany, the biggest bump or valley on its entire surface would be 1/10 of a millimeter. Just incredible.
But the logistics are just as absurd as the physics. You literally have to ship this 180-ton beast, which by the way weighs about as much as a blue whale, made of over 100,000 parts from 5,000 different suppliers on multiple Boeing 747 jumbo jets. And once it finally arrives at the customer's fab, ASML engineers have to spend months painstakingly putting it all back together on site. At roughly $200 million a pop, you aren't just buying a product, you're funding a massive infrastructure deployment.
Section 2. High-NA, the new scepter, redrawing the power map with a $400 million machine.
So, this next-generation High-NA machine is completely redrawing the corporate power map.
You've got these different silicon emperors, essentially, negotiating with ASML like sovereign nations. High-NA basically doubles down on resolution, but at an astronomical cost. Intel is treating this as a fight for pure survival, stepping up as the loud first mover to secure those early R&D and production orders for their 14A node. Meanwhile, TSMC, the current king of the hill, is patiently biding its time. Their A16 node doesn't even need High-NA yet, so they're just calmly negotiating for future A14 adoption. And then you have the Korean memory kings, Samsung and SK Hynix. They're happily jumping in to add EUV layers for their advanced DRAM generation. Ultimately, they all know absolutely nobody else can make this light.
And here is the crucial point, the insane asymmetry we're seeing in the market right now. The United States is reportedly dropping around $400 billion on these massive Stargate AI data centers, hundreds of billions for compute infrastructure, and yet that entire build-out bottlenecks right through the delivery of these individual $350 to $400 million EYNA machines from one single Dutch supplier. It's a staggering contrast.
Section 3, the Great Wall of Feldhoven, the China front. Now we have to neutrally look at the geopolitical realities here. Due to a series of export restrictions that kicked off in 2019 and widened significantly through 2023 and 2024, we're seeing a deliberate amputation in ASML's order books. China's share of ASML sales was sitting at a really robust 36% in 2024, but that's now guided to drop sharply to roughly a fifth of their total revenue by 2026. The Dutch government, under pressure from the US, has systematically withheld export licenses for these most advanced machines.
But Chinese fabs aren't just taking this lying down. They're actually executing a really fascinating three-layered response. First up, stockpiling. They totally flooded ASML with older DUV, or deep ultraviolet machines right before the export deadlines hit, just to build up multi-year buffers. Second, stretching. Foundries like SMIC are heroically pushing those older DUV machines to their absolute limits, using quadruple patterning to achieve near 5-nanometer equivalents. We saw exactly that with the current 9030 processor. And finally, cloning. They're aggressively funding 3 different domestic EUV light source programs, and there are even credible reports of a covert prototype lab operating out of Shenzhen.
If you trace the timeline of these restrictions, you see a steady escalation. It started with the Dutch government withholding EUV export licenses back in 2019, then widened to the most advanced DUV immersion systems recently. And now, the clock is ticking toward 2028, which is when Chinese domestic production target EUV prototypes are expected to emerge. This dynamic completely shifts the global contest. It's no longer just about who currently has EUV, it's about who can scale domestic alternatives faster.
Former ASML CEO Peter Rennick really hit the nail on the head with this one. He pointed out that, sure, you can slow a nation down with geopolitical strategies and export controls, but you cannot outlaw the fundamental science that the entire global industry is racing toward. At the end of the day, physics is physics, no matter what borders you draw on a map.
Section 4. The ultimate choke point. Why the whole world kneels to Veldhoven.
When you zoom out, you see this massive global tribute flowing back to ASML. Whether it's TSMC banking record margins and planning future A14 nodes entirely around ASML Lite, or the Korean memory kings surging machine orders by 75% just to compete in the new high-bandwidth memory race, or that $400 billion Stargate AI infrastructure in the US, all of it relies completely on chips printed by ASML. Interestingly, ASML is using its immense wealth to reshape the landscape itself, recently leading a €1.3 billion investment into Mistral AI. The arms dealer of the AI age is literally buying a stake in one of the armies. Even China's intense legacy memory gambit rides entirely on walls built by those stockpiled ASML tools.
So ASML isn't just a pillar of the tech world, it is the ultimate keystone. By definition, a keystone locks everything else into place. If you removed ASML, the silicon age wouldn't just slowly grind down over a decade, it would completely stop in about 10 weeks of missed deliveries. There are 0 alternatives, no workarounds allowed by physics. It's an absolute choke point written in tin plasma and flawless mirrors, woven into a supply chain that took 40 years to build.
Which leaves us with this final, frankly provocative thought. History tells us empires always rise and fall, but in this new era of massive capital expenditure and fierce geopolitical rivalry, will anyone ever break the physical monopoly of Veldhoven, or is the entire future of artificial intelligence permanently bound to one small city in the Netherlands? It really is the trillion-dollar question of our time.